Hey guys, welcome back to the library. Welcome back to another video. My name is Megan, and today we are going to talk about Harry Potter. More specifically, we're going to talk about 3 books that I think are very similar to Harry Potter, sort of. They're the most similar books I've ever found to Harry Potter, I should say. And one is going to be middle grade, one is going to be young adult, and one is going to be adult. Now, this is not to say that these are like amazing and that these are just like Harry Potter, because in fact, 2 out of the 3 of these I gave 4 stars to. I didn't even give 5 stars to them, but they're still, I feel like, the most similar, even though they weren't, quite as good as Harry Potter. One of them might be better though. So let's do our middle grade books first. And these are the books that I think could possibly be better than Harry Potter, and I'm sure you've probably heard about them before, but if you haven't, then you're about to learn. So this is the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. So I'd heard of this on BookTube, just, other booktubers that read middle grade talking about this series. The first one is called The Trials of Morrigan Crow. The second one is called Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow. And the third one is called Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow. And the series is not finished. Silverborn, The Mystery of Morrigan Crow comes out next year, late, like September, November, October, maybe October. So the series is not finished. I think it's going to be maybe 5 or more books, but these are the ones that are out so far. So let's just talk about the first one. So when I heard the premise of it, I didn't think it sounded like anything spectacular. It was like a girl who's born on eventide, which means that she's super unlucky and she's blamed for everything that goes bad around her town. And worst of all, the curse dooms her to die at midnight on her 11th birthday, which kind of reminded me of Harry Potter becoming a wizard on his 11th birthday. So she awaits her fate, and a remarkable man named Jupiter North, who kind of gives Dumbledore vibes, but he's younger and he has like red hair and he's more kind of flamboyant and extravagant even than Dumbledore, whisking her away into the safety of a secret magical city called Nevermore. And so at this place, she joins a society called the Wondrous Society that is basically like Hogwarts, but not really. And there she must compete in 4 dangerous trials against hundreds of other children, or she'll have to confront her deadly fate, which sounded to me sort of like the Triwizarding, tournament from the 4th Harry Potter book, Goblet of Fire. But it turns out it's really not like that. The trials were a more minor aspect of the book. The focus wasn't really on that. And honestly, I thought that the writing style is what made this stand out. It's better writing than Harry Potter even. It's so whimsical and so magical and so fun and even funny and really clever. Harry Potter is just sort of straightforward. And yeah, there's a few kind of funny little moments, but this one is so much more whimsical. And what's shocking is that this is a debut novel. So this author, she is so talented. I believe she's pretty young, and I'm pretty sure she's from Australia, I want to say. Yeah, she's from Australia, and this is her first work. So we have to stop and smell them. I would highly recommend this series if you liked Harry Potter, even though it's middle grade and you may think, oh, I'm too old for this. In my mid-30s here, I truly, truly enjoyed reading this book. And I think, I cannot wait to read it to my children. So I think people of all ages would enjoy this. I had my mom read this book. She read all 3 of them. She thinks that it got a little confusing because she also thought Harry Potter was confusing at the beginning because of all the weird names and stuff. So you might think it's a little confusing, but it's the closest thing for sure out of this list. Even this is the closest one to Harry Potter and the one that's possibly even better. The next book I do not own, and our library copy is checked out, so I will just show it to you. It's called Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. You kind of have to know a little bit of the backstory behind this series to really understand what this book is. It is young adult and it is fantasy. However, the first book in the series, this is sort of the first book in the series, but there's another book that the author wrote called Fangirl, and it's about a girl who goes off to college, which I liked that it wasn't set in high school. It's set during her college years, so she seemed a little older, and I kind of, related to that a little bit more. And so it's her first year. She's also a twin, which I thought was kind of interesting. She and her twin are radically different. They have made different types of friends in college. Her friend is more into the kind of partying and kind of gets in trouble in college even, but our main character is pretty shy and she struggles with anxiety. So a lot of the book deals with kind of just realistic issues with anxiety and things like that. But what makes this like Harry Potter is that the main girl, and the reason why it's called Fangirl, is that she's a huge fangirl of basically, in this universe that this book is set in, there is something called Simon Snow, and it's basically our version of Harry Potter, where people are obsessed with it, people write fan fiction. So our main character has written a very, very popular online fan fiction, and the people at her college, she doesn't even tell people that she's the author. They don't know that it's her. It's super, super popular. And she's still releasing new content all the time. And the story is called Carry On that she writes. And the story is about Simon Snow and basically their version of Draco Malfoy, whose name is Baz. Like Basil, but he goes by Baz. And he's a vampire, and he's also Simon Snow's roommate. So it's basically as like if Harry Potter and Draco were roommates, and Draco was evil, which he kind of is anyway, and he's a vampire. But they fall, in her fan fiction, they fall in love. That didn't happen in the actual story. It's just in her fan fiction. So then this book comes out, Fangirl. Then the author decides that, I guess it was so popular that people wanted to see what was that fan fiction that character in this book was writing. So then she wrote Carry On. So this is the fan fiction that the girl from Fangirl wrote. This is like basically Harry Potter fan fiction, but with different names. And I think that's really, really unique and interesting. But it's also set at a school called Watford, which is basically like Hogwarts, but it's set like their last year of school. So I think they go 8 years, I believe. So I think it's like their 8th year. So you have to imagine that like all the adventures and trials and everything have already happened. It's like reading kind of the last book in a series, which was kind of cool. So you don't get all the backstory and all the history. It's like, well, you know what happened in the beginning. You know how they all got there and how there's this evil force that they always have to fight. And so there is this like looming evil. And then his roommate has gone missing. And you have to figure out where he's at. And then when he finally shows back up, of course, they do kind of have this like love-hate relationship because obviously they are enemies. Simon Snow thinks that his roommate Baz is actually trying to kill him. Apparently he has tried to kill him, and it's kind of humorous in a way with that. But and then of course there is sort of like this headmaster figure as well, like Dumbledore. But it's just, it was fun. It was whimsical. It was fun. I gave it 4 stars because it wasn't as good as Harry Potter. But I thought the premise was really neat, and I really liked Fangirl. I'd honestly read that book too if I were you. Maybe even read that one first. And the last book I want to talk to you about today is the adult book that I think is probably one of the most similar, at least the first half of it, to Harry Potter that I've ever read. And that is the book, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So I just finished this book literally yesterday. It is the first in a trilogy. I know it's been very hyped on BookTube. It came out several years ago, so it's nothing new. However, the first, literally pretty much exactly 50%, is one of the most similar kind of adult fantasies that I've ever read to Harry Potter. Because yes, there is a magical school element where the character, has to kind of go through some trials and tribulations and decide where kind of her loyalties lie, just like Harry Potter. And there's, kind of this very whimsical sort of character that's a little like Dumbledore. He's not really in charge. He's almost kind of like if Sirius and Dumbledore were together in a character, which I love. Those are like my 2 favorite characters. So he's obviously one of my favorite characters. And he's like super powerful. Like he never even shows up to class. He just kind of makes fun of the students and laughs at them, and they're like, well, his class is just a joke. But it turns out he's actually very powerful, and of course there's a little more to his backstory than meets the eye. But I did predict it. I would say that part is kind of predictable about who this character actually is. But just know going into it that yes, the first 50% is super similar to Harry Potter, so if you want those magical school vibes, that would definitely be the part for you. Now, just know that the second half of this book, and that's why some people, I think, give it a little lower rating, is because it shifts dramatically and radically and suddenly at 50% of the way through. So something happens and basically a war begins it's supposed to be based on China. And like the Opium Wars, but obviously this one's called the Poppy Wars. So this war breaks out and she is suddenly thrust into the middle of it, and all of her training that she's used in school she has to start using this immediately and basically become this warrior. And honestly, I expected that to happen in maybe even a second book. So the pacing's kind of bizarre, that it's like, okay, a little bit of training, oh, okay, jump right into the war and her character development. And it honestly seems like it goes a little too fast, and I think that's the chief complaint of a lot of the readers, is that maybe this should have happened over the span of a couple books and not just one book. But if you like that fast-paced plot, that's really what this is. But just know that 50% of the way through, it's really not like Harry Potter anymore. It's as if, just imagine that like war broke out, in the first or second Harry Potter book, and Harry had to quit his training at Hogwarts and then go and fight in, a battle. That's what this would be. But also it's very, very dark. So there's a lot of trigger warnings. If you don't want to read about horrible things happening to like children, then you probably don't want to read this. It's not like super graphic. I mean, it kind of is, but it more just is like, oh, these things. It doesn't show you the stuff happening to people during the war. It just kind of tells you that, oh, by the way, this happened and it's really terrible. So at least there's that. But it was, because some parts were kind of hard to read. But I did enjoy the ending, and I will continue the series. It is a trilogy. I don't know quite where it's going to go. I have a feeling that books 2 and 3 are not going to be like Harry Potter. But if you want something that, as an adult, you want those Harry Potter vibes that then turn darker and explore more issues, and you want a very morally gray character, unlike Harry Potter, who's pretty, you know, just good, then this might be the book for you. So those are the 3 books I would recommend if you are looking for something similar to Harry Potter. We have Nevermore if you want, you know, a fun little middle grade romp that is probably the most similar. We have Carry On if you want something that is young adult and more like Harry Potter fan fiction, but also really fun. And then we have The Poppy War if you want something adult and a little darker and serious that starts out more like Harry Potter. It's clear that she definitely was inspired by those books, and she's probably like me. She probably grew up reading them, and now she wants to kind of transition into something more mature. So if that's what you're looking for, then maybe try The Poppy War. All right, hopefully this video was helpful, and let me know if you guys have read any books that are similar to Harry Potter. Maybe I'm missing out on something, so let me know because I'm always looking for something similar. Alrighty, I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.